Well, welcome to Stowmarket Citadel, a place where we love God and we love others. I don't know about you, but I am absolutely looking forward to once again being back in our hall. Not too much longer now. The 17th of October is continuing to be our date when we will once again open our doors and we will worship together. In the meantime, please keep the leaders of this core in prayer as we make decisions and as we open up, as we look at safety plans, and because one of the things we want to do is worship, but we want to make sure that we are safe. If you're still looking for things to do, the Cafe on the Rec still needs volunteers, and again, you will not regret volunteering. It's a really good time where you can meet people and make coffees and hang out and chat with others. We do need volunteers because as volunteering goes, when some people are away, we need people to fill in and vice versa. The car parking will be coming to a halt here shortly as well. But however, because of the NHS has enjoyed working with us so much with the car parking, once it moves on to the next location, they have asked if we would help out as well. So if you are still interested in helping out, see Mike Baker about that, and he will direct you as to where to call. Also, we will be looking for other things. Just stay tuned because we do need some help with cleaning up with the grounds and things like that. Anyway, don't forget that on Monday nights we do have a prayer Zoom. Now, this particular Monday, we will not have the prayer Zoom because we have a church core council meeting. And so we'll be doing that. But if you are in the prayer group, please pray for the leaders. Please continue to pray as we move into a new day. Anyway, I know that you've come to worship. And this next hymn, the hymn that I want to start, really should put us off on the right foot today, because I know personally who I have believed, and I know you do too. So that's If you have been tuning in for the last few weeks, you will realize that we are doing a 4-part series on a gentleman by the name of Joseph Corbell. And the reason I smile when I say his name is because, as I've said in previous times, that I've been able to meet this gentleman, sit in his living room, and take time to pray with him and to be ministered by him. And I've seen not just in those moments, but times when he struggled, and he struggled with his health, where he had such a passion for the Lord, but was one of the most humblest people that I have ever met. Anyway, here's part 3, and let's go ahead and roll that clip now.
Tak tohle to je bunkr tábora Vojna, kde prostě se vykonávaly kázeňské tresty a jinak základní trest pobytu v korekci v tom bunkru, jo, tak byl obvykle 10 dní, a kdy strava se dávala jenom jednou za 3 dny v poledne. Já jsem celkem taky tady v tom na střídačku seděl 40 dní v tom bunkru. A je to buď vítán, kdo s dobrým úmyslem vcházíš. Prostě jednotlivý vězňové, každý to snášel různě a řada sebevražd oběšením. No tak některý prostě i se odpálili, když se dostali v dole v šachtě ke střelivu. Ale měl jsem připravený párkrát útěk, bohužel mi to nevyšlo.
My dad was sent to solitary cells. A cell was very small, very cold, and he was told he has to stand against the door because he was not allowed to sit down. Many prisoners lost their mind in this kind of treatment, but my dad God asked me, he lost his mind, he's talking all the time. They didn't know I'm praying. My mom was now a wife of political prisoner. People were afraid to associate with us. It was very dangerous. We were expelled from our home. Everything was confiscated, even our beds. We were suggested to set up the tent in the backyard in Škvorec. It was big enough tent for 3 cots. Every day we had to walk to the forest to collect wood, to make fire to cook on.
Sometimes she didn't have what to eat. Once she has told me how her schoolfellow ate an apple and she threw it away. She picked it up and ate it because she didn't have anything like that.
We lived there till 1954. My mom found a job in the hospital in Prague. She was allowed to live in nurses' dormitories. It was a fairly small room for 5 people. So there were 2 beds on each side. One bed had 4 mattresses on top of each other and all our bedding. And in the evening, we always moved the table and put 3 mattresses on the floor for 3 people to sleep. That's where we lived for 7 years.
His wife, she was a woman of prayer. And even when she was in a very difficult situation, she always was smiling. She was called Angel. Her love and her tender to all people were amazing. She went through it excellently.
You had to decide. You are Christians with all consequences, or you are not. You couldn't be indifferent. I was laughed at for believing in God, I was told that God is just crutch for stupid people, for people who cannot think for themselves.
They had to stand up for what they believed, taking the full risk, but God actually upheld them and provided for them.
In prison, it was difficult to understand God's will. My dad said, "Lord, I was preparing to serve you among the people who didn't know you, and you sent me to prison?"
In one horrible night, they had to stand there outside in the wind and snow was falling down. The men not dressed well, hungry, not able to sleep. Suddenly, I felt the touch on my shoulder. I looked annoyed and the man who was disturbing me.
He had a very desperate expression in his face. And he said, "Tell me something, I am going to run against the fence." There was electricity going through that, and so many of them had chosen to die that way. And Opie told him, look at the sky, look how dark it is. But this is not the end of it. The morning will come, and we will see the sun again. And he looked and saw that the man started to have peace in his face. Suddenly, my father heard the Lord telling him, "You told me that you want to serve people. This is your mission field." Those are the men who needs to be told about me.
And with tears dropping down from my nose, I said, "Lord, forgive me. Now I understand. Help me to be faithful." The persecution, hunger, nakedness, slavery work was same as before, but my attitude toward the will of God was changed. And that was what brought me peace and even joy into my heart. I became, if I can say it, a happy prisoner.
My father knew a lot of Bible verses by heart. He had such a little stump of pencil. He wrote all verses on pieces of cement bags and put them together. And now they were all written in this Bible.
There was a place where we could crawl under the barrack, where I was always meeting with some men to have a little devotion.
Everybody could come. Sometimes it was 25 of them.
Josef Korbel pořádal ve vězení různá setkání, kde vyučoval a kde sloužil Božím slovem pro ostatní vězně. Můj otec po setkání s Josefem Korbelem otevřel svůj život Pánu Ježíši a rozhodl se ho následovat.
He was one of those people who always crawl under the barrack to have meeting with my dad. They became friends.
Přátelství s Josefem Korbelem pro mého otce bylo něco výjimečného, protože jejich přátelství vzniklo v nejtěžším období jejich života, ve vězení, v prostředí, kde oni byli na sobě závislí a taky vzájemně riskovali jeden pro druhého svůj život.
There have been a lot of pressure on the United Nations, mostly coming from US, and through this pressure, communist regime finally released him.
That's how he came home. He was a stranger to us. We loved him. He was our father, but we didn't understand him, and he didn't understand us. And besides that, he had nervous breakdowns, bad ones, after discharge.
It was a nightmare, living a nightmare, and therefore we don't like to talk about our nightmares.
I pray to you and feel you. Recently, I read a story by Kevin Miller in Wheaton, Illinois that resonated with me, and I'm confident it will with many of you as well. It's based upon 2 Timothy 2:15, in which Paul writes to Timothy these words: Timothy, do everything you can to present yourself to God as a man who is fully genuine, a worker unashamed of your mission, a guide capable of leading others along the correct path defined by the word of truth. Just as with Kevin Miller, when I was a little boy, I remember the occasions when my father had a certain project to do around the house. He would assess the situation, and very often he would say, we need an additional part. And so he'd invite me to go down to the local hardware store, a small place in a row of shops, and the only parking available was on the street. When my father and I would go into that shop, I would be astonished at the way that material and tools were hanging from the ceiling and the walls and covering the floor, and there seemed to be no organization of any kind. And yet there would always be a man who would poke his head out from the side and say, can I help you? In Kevin Miller's situation, that individual's name was Clarence. I remember that my father would say, well, I think I need a piece that does this or that does that. The man would listen, and then he would say, yes, I know just what you need. And he'd make his way through the very cramped aisles, and he'd lean over, and he'd rummage around on the bottom shelf, pull something out, dust it off, and say, this is what you need. And he'd describe exactly the process that needed to be followed in order to complete the project successfully. Today, when I have a list of things to do around the house, when I need a part or a tool, I won't go to a local hardware store. I'll go to a large DIY retailer. And there's acres of off-street parking. And when I walk into the massive warehouse, I'll see all kinds of things displayed beautifully throughout. And yet, I'll find myself completely lost. I don't know exactly where I need to go or even exactly what I need. When I go down an aisle, I'll see someone in an apron on the other end of the aisle, and I'll start toward them. But then it's as if they see me coming, because suddenly they disappear across and around the corner on the other end of the aisle. And eventually, if I do find someone, they'll say to me, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know anything about this section. I'm just filling in for someone who was sick today. It's important for you and I to remember the parallels of this story when it comes to the things of the church. It's very common to believe today that what we need in our worship of the Lord is enormous sophistication, that we need large facilities, that we need world-class presentations in video and music and in every other medium. But I think what's most important, and what Paul is trying to say here to Timothy, is this. The most important thing is sharing our faith from one generation to the next. In Scripture, we see that Moses taught Joshua, and Eli taught Samuel, and Paul taught Timothy. Today, therefore, the challenge for us is not to make grand and glorious presentations, but rather perhaps to become a Clarence, to become someone who knows what it is to live the Christian life, and to be able to share it in simple, unadorned terms, and thereby strengthen what the church will be in the future and what someone else's relationship with Jesus Christ can be. I encourage you, therefore, today to identify someone in your life to whom you can be a Clarence. Share the faith, share your experience, and you'll find that you have contributed more to the kingdom of God than any elaborate presentation ever could. God bless you.